Okay, now, as a course in national security, where else would we begin other than ice cream? That's the data set. So, what I suggest you do when we're doing these downloads, now we will have quizzes. The quizzes aren't to get you, it's just to keep you up with the material. So this is the ice cream data set. It's an CSV file. That means comma delimited, which essentially means that R, that is where we are now, which I'm going to explain everything, will recognize it with commas. So when you download this, do it within your documents. And then when you find it, you just go over here and you import the data set. Now I see it and I import it and can see it here. You will have to install what it says, the reader package. So just say yes once you're able to do it. Now, this is the avant-garde of research. This is R Studio. Now, like I showed you before, you essentially have to download R first and then download R Studio, depending on whether you have an Apple or a normal computer. When I say normal, I mean, HP, whatever, Dell, not Apple. So once you get it on there, some people have some problems. Do not download it like a bunch of times because then you'll have a bunch of problems. Do it, with the best ability you have. It's just downloading and then regular downloading, I guess, just like you would download anything on a computer. So there's two, there's R and then there's R Studio. So then we see this data set of ice cream. Why ice cream? Ice cream's the easiest thing for you to understand before we get into the real national security law, et cetera, research. I mean, it's going to culminate with a big national security research you'll be doing. And ice cream actually is a very easy way to begin. So you see view, and then you have to attach it. So you just attach it, and then you've got ice cream. Yay. So now you've got different columns. So you have consumption here, income we're not going to deal with, but price and temperature. So this is the price of the ice cream. This is the temperature outside. What regression analysis asks is does an increase or decrease of temperature lead to a decrease or increase in consumption? Why would anyone want to know that? Well, you might want to know it because if you have an ice cream shop, you want to increase the number of employees or the number of ice cream if temperature gets hotter. If it gets cooler and it goes down, then you want less. This could be anything. This could be temperature and gas in your car. This could be, the number of terrorist attacks. When it gets hot, there's a larger number of terrorist attacks. We're actually going to do a data set on terrorism, radiation and chemical weapons on rats, just a broad range of different national security things. But for now, we're really just focusing on a very simple idea, and that is consumption and temperature. One of the easiest things about R Studio is that you look at it, right? And it is a glorified calculator. You can add, you can divide, etc. You can get the mean, right? The average right here. This is called a function, MEAN. And you do it, and then you want, I want the mean of all those numbers. There's 30 in consumption. Oh, okay, it's 0.35. Then I want the mean temperature. So I can go back up using the arrow, and then I go temperature. Boom. And I have it, 49. So that's the mean average. And then there's other things you can obviously do. Standard deviation, that's how much do they deviate from the mean, which is actually interesting. Temperature. Boom. Now, I want to know, right, whether there's a correlation, that is a relationship between consumption and temperature. So all you do is use a function, that's a command, COR, you go in here, right? and you look at consumption, I always put the dependent variable first. I'm going to explain that. And temperature. Ba-boom. Wow, that's pretty high because the most you can get is a perfect 1. So 0.77 is very high. So we see a relationship between these two variables, and we're going to apply this all to national security law, etc. So if you look, this temperature is what we call the independent variable, and this is consumption, which is called the dependent variable. So the independent variable, right? Independent variable is temperature. And then the dependent variable, I'm a bad speller. We'll just say dependent variable equals consumption. That is how much money. So does that lead? This right here is what you call a console. Up here, I'm writing in. This is the data set. So you have 30. So we're going to do real research in national security. And then down here is where you write the codes. We're not going to be writing any big, huge, long codes, but as you see, like horrors of war, guns, all this stuff, we're actually going to be doing sea ice. It's just really important stuff. I have a big terrorism data set, the guerrilla war data set. So we're going to learn how to do real research. And this is going to be great, not only for your your cover letter, any interviews, etc., but also getting better letters of recommendation, because if you can do this, you can say, oh, yeah, I did research with the professor, etc. So you can write it, I can write it into the letter of recommendation. So you want to say to yourself, I want to know if there's a relationship between consumption and temperature. That's what you have, right? But then what about price? Price and consumption. So you want to go back, right? I can go back with an easy arrow. I just put it up. It has to be on the outside, the cursor. But I want to do now not temperature. I'm just going to replace that with price. Right? Look at the 3-letter word is the 3-letter rule, I call it. Price. Once you write that, you'll start seeing it up here. It's just 3 letters. You can write more. Boom. Negative 0.25. Now that's not a perfect 1 negative, but now since it's negative, you know what? Well, as we increase price, right? Consumption of ice cream goes down. Whether that's statistically significant or not is something else, but that's very important to know, because this could be price and consumption of anything. So this isn't just for business. We're going to apply. I mean, this is just so you kind of understand it. This data set, the ice cream, is very, very intuitive, easy to understand. Oh, yeah, I get it. Temperature, with the rise of temperature, right? We're getting a very strong positive correlation of the consumption of ice cream, right? There's 30 data points, right? So then we do price. Oh, it's negative. The increase of price decreases consumption. So this is just to kind of understand, this is what we call a large N data set. Large N is different from case studies, where if you do case study work, you might ask yourself, why was there a revolution in Cuba, but not, say, Paraguay? That's only 2 cases. This is more variable oriented, where we're dealing with a ton of different data and looking at the variables. 2 independent variables, that is causes, price and temperature, and then the other, consumption, right? So what's important here is this is what we call large N data. Over here, you have your history, right? I do a lot with RStudio. And over here is well, the home. You have files, and then you look for the file. Oh, pay my bill. I better pay that bill. Here it is, RStudio. So like I just put it one RStudio because it pops up one. We're gonna start doing some of these that are related to national security. Research is very interesting. So you'll be reading different articles, right? Like they'll say, we are going to decrease domestic terrorism. However, how do we know if they're going to decrease domestic terrorism, right? The policies. So we do research, temperature, terrorism over time, and has there been a decrease? This is something that's going to be interesting. We're going to do stuff on global warming. Is that a national security threat? Chemical weapons, cyber security, etc. but we're using what we call large N data, and this helps us understand the world better. So we will not only be like just talking. If you've taken my national security other classes, we have debates, but this way we'll be using what they call large N data. And this is big data. This is essentially getting into artificial intelligence. They do a lot of artificial intelligence in R Studio. R is the statistical environment, but R Studio is the more, I like to call it, a much better platform than R. R without R Studio is very ugly and very difficult. R Studio makes it very user friendly. So that is basically at the beginning of what we want to know is that we're looking at correlation. So what correlation is essentially, is there a relationship between these two variables, say temperature and consumption? And we'll be doing that. Is there a relationship between a decrease or increase in terrorism and the particular state? Say we're going to do African states, or let's say, for example, do policies cause a decrease or increase in terrorism? What else? I mean, there's just a broad range of different areas we can apply this to. Law, I know a lot of political science students, a lot of people in class want to actually study law. We're going to apply it for law, but this course culminates into the huge data set that we really test a theory and actually can make it publishable in talking about why does war last so long. So that was our first little data set. We're going to do one more thing with it. Thanks for listening, and please leave any questions in community forum.